There's something unsettling about morgues, isn't there? The way the air always feels too still, too cold. The silence that stretches endlessly, broken only by the faint hum of flickering fluorescent lights. Maybe it's the knowledge that behind each steel door, someone's final chapter has already been written. Lauren never believed in ghosts. She was a rational woman, a medical student working the night shift for extra cash. Alone in a morgue long after the world had gone to sleep. But that night, something changed. It started with small things. A misplaced clipboard. The feeling of being watched. The distant sound of something moving when no one else was there. Then, one of the body lockers creaked open. Empty. Or at least, it should have been. Was it exhaustion playing tricks on her mind? Or had something in that cold, sterile room finally decided it wasn't ready to be forgotten? Tonight we dive into the morgue, alone at midnight. A story of isolation, doubt, and a creeping horror that refuses to be ignored. Dim your screen, turn up the volume, and prepare yourself for what happens when the dead refuse to rest.
Hospitals have a way of changing after midnight. The fluorescent lights hum a little louder, the halls stretch a little longer, and the air grows thick with something unspoken. Maybe it's the absence of daytime chatter or the way the shadows pool in the corners as if waiting for something unseen to step into them. I had been working the night shift at St. Vincent's Medical Center for nearly a year now. The pay wasn't great, but it was flexible enough to fit around my nursing school schedule. Most of the time it was quite boring even. A handful of patients in the emergency department, a few routine check-ins, and a skeleton crew of staff just trying to get through until dawn. But some nights felt different, and tonight was one of them. As I clocked in at 11:52 p.m., the overhead intercom crackled, announcing a routine call for assistance in ICU 3. Nothing unusual, just another late-night round in a place where life and death constantly brush shoulders. I made my way to the nurses' station where Brian, one of the senior night shift nurses, was finishing up his notes. He looked up as I approached, giving me a tired smirk. "Glad you made it," he muttered, rubbing his temple. "Tonight's been a mess." I raised an eyebrow. "What happened?" 3 deaths since 8 p.m. 2 were expected to have old age complications, but the third, he exhaled sharply, shaking his head. "That one's weird." "Weird how?" Ryan tapped his pen against the desk, clearly debating whether to say more. Finally, he handed me a manila folder, the paper slightly crumpled from how tightly he'd been gripping it. Guy came in around 9:30, no ID, no family, nothing. Paramedics found him collapsed near the train station. No external injuries, no obvious cause. He was breathing when they brought him in. 30 minutes later, gone, just like that. A prickle of unease crawled up my spine. What did the autopsy say? Brian scoffed. "They haven't done one yet. That's why he's still down there." "Down where?" Brian tilted his head toward the elevator at the end of the hall. Morgue, locker 12. Coroner's not in until morning. I nodded slowly, but something about the way he said it unsettled me. Still down there. Like he wasn't supposed to be. Brian must have noticed my hesitation because he forced a chuckle, shaking his head. Relax, Lauren. It's just paperwork. You've been down there before. And I had, plenty of times. The morgue was cold, silent, and sterile, just as it should be. The bodies inside were just that, bodies. I wasn't squeamish, and I certainly wasn't superstitious. But as I took the folder from Brian's hands, a small voice in the back of my mind whispered something I couldn't ignore. Then why do you feel like something is waiting for you? I turned toward the elevator, shaking off the thought. It's just another shift, just another file, just another room. And yet, as the metal doors slid shut behind me and the descent to the lower levels began, I felt the first flicker of unease curling in my stomach. The corridor leading to Dr. Ramirez's office felt strangely long, each step echoing on the polished floor. I remember glancing at the clock on the wall just past midnight, wondering how a single hour could stretch out so much in a near-empty hospital. The air wasn't stale or suffocating, but it carried an odd sense of abandonment, as if I were the only one still awake in the entire building. When I reached his office, the door was slightly ajar. Dr. Ramirez stood near his desk, rummaging through a stack of files with a frantic energy I wasn't used to seeing in him. He looked up the moment I stepped inside, and before I could get a word out, he spoke in a rushed tone. Lauren, I have to leave when an emergency comes up, he said, gathering papers into a briefcase. They need me in the building next door. Something about a sudden shortage in the ICU. Listen, can you handle the final paperwork here? I paused, uncertain, sure, but what about the chart you wanted me to check? The one for... He shook his head, already halfway past me. No time. I'll be back before morning if I can. Just finish anything pending. You know the routine. In seconds, he was gone, footsteps fading down the corridor. I stood there, the fluorescent lights casting a tired glare on the empty desk. The computer in the corner displayed a half-finished form, presumably one of the many tasks he'd hoped to complete tonight. A sigh escaped my lips, alone again in a hospital that felt emptier by the minute. I wasn't one to frighten easily. My job had taught me resilience, but the recent tension in the morgue weighed on my mind. Still, I pushed it aside. After all, it was just another night shift, right? Most of the building's staff had clocked out hours ago, leaving only a handful of people scattered across different wards. It would be quiet, I told myself, just keep busy and wait until dawn. Near the reception area, a small set of security monitors displayed live feeds from various rooms. Offices, hallways, even the morgue. A standard system for nights like this, when minimal staff meant fewer people to watch the entire complex. I noticed the feed showing the morgue's main area. One of the overhead lights flickered periodically, and a desk lamp was still on. I hadn't realized I'd left it lit. It cast a sharp glow over the cold metal drawers we used for storage. I stared at that screen for a moment, recalling the muffled sounds I heard not long ago. It felt like an invitation to double-check, to make sure everything was as it should be. My mind raced with half-formed reasons why I could just ignore it. Maybe I was too tired. Maybe it was safer to stay here. But old habits die hard, and part of me refused to let a simple detail go overlooked. Grabbing the nearest clipboard, I headed downstairs once more, determined to switch off that lamp and return to my forms. The elevator ride was uneventful, just a slow descent into the silent lower level. When I stepped out, the hallway lights buzzed faintly, revealing an expanse of sterile tiles and closed doors. The morgue door squeaked in protest as I pushed it open. Inside, the lamp bathed the far desk in a harsh glow, contrasting sharply with the surrounding dimness. I moved quickly to click it off, muttering about unnecessary power usage, trying to keep my mind occupied with mundane details instead of thinking about anything else. Then I heard something in the room. It was subtle, almost like fabric brushing across the floor, or a drawer shifting. My nerves prickled. I glanced at the metal compartments lining the wall, remembering the uneasy feeling from earlier. Nothing appeared out of place, yet the sensation of being watched persisted, a crawling at the back of my neck that refused to go away. I told myself it was just exhaustion and turned off the lamp with a firm click. The darkness immediately swallowed the desk, leaving only the faint overhead lights. For an instant, I thought I saw something move near the farthest drawer. Locker 12, I recalled, but a blink later, there was no movement at all. Enough, I whispered, more to myself than anyone else. My heart wasn't racing, but there was a distinct tightening in my chest that I couldn't explain away as simple nerves. I lingered, listening to the hush of the cooling system, waiting for another sign. None came. Pushing aside my unease, I hurried back to the corridor. The door clicked shut behind me, the hush of the lower level resuming as if nothing unusual had happened. I made my way to the small monitoring room near Dr. Ramirez's office, resolving to bury myself in the remaining paperwork until morning. All the while, I couldn't shake the impression that something lingered behind that morgue door. In the shadows, waiting. But it was better not to dwell on that. After all, the less I thought about it, the less real it could become. Or so I hoped. Time passed in an uneasy blur. I tried to focus on the form spread out before me, double-checking each field, each date, anything to keep my thoughts from drifting back to the morgue. In the hush of the hospital's night shift, every small noise, the distant door closing, the faint hum of machines, took on a strange significance. Still, I told myself I was just jumpy after hearing those odd sounds earlier, Despite my best efforts, my attention kept returning to the security monitor in the corner of the room. 5 separate camera feeds showed various corridors and waiting areas, while one was dedicated to the morgue. That single feed drew my gaze over and over, even when I tried to ignore it. At first, everything was the same as before: motionless metal drawers, a couple overhead lights casting long shadows on the floor. But around 2 in the morning, something changed. The camera feed flickered ever so slightly, and I noticed it. One of the drawers was open. My breath caught in my throat. I leaned closer to the screen, squinting at the image. The drawer had been sealed just an hour ago. I was sure of it. Yet there it stood, ajar. It wasn't wide open, but enough that the difference was undeniable. I scanned the other cameras, searching for some sign of a doctor or attendant who might have gone in. Nothing. The corridors were empty, each feed showing only silent hallways and vacant chairs. Whoever or whatever had opened that drawer wasn't on camera. The thought made the back of my neck prickle. I glanced at the timestamp on the screen. 2:07 a.m. Could it be Dr. Ramirez? But I knew he'd left the building hours ago, heading to the facility next door. If he'd come back, I would have heard or seen him at least on one of the other camera feeds. Another possibility flickered through my mind. Maybe a pathologist had come to do a sudden autopsy, but without any official call or notice. My unease deepened as I realized which drawer was open. Locker 12. The same one that had given me an inexplicable sense of dread. The same drawer I had avoided checking too closely earlier, mostly out of fear I refused to admit to myself. I stood, pushing the pile of paperwork aside. Every step through the corridor felt like crossing into a darker story than I was prepared to finish. The elevator dinged softly, carrying me down to the basement level once again. With each floor the elevator passed, I kept hoping for a rational explanation. That maybe I'd find a colleague or a maintenance worker fiddling with the morgue's refrigeration system. But when the door slid open, the hallway was deserted. I stepped into the morgue's main room, the fluorescent lights revealing rows of drawers. My eyes immediately latched onto the one that was partly open, number 12A. A wave of unease knotted my stomach. I approached it carefully, half expecting someone to step out from behind a cabinet and say they'd been working on the body. No one appeared. Reaching out, I touched the cold metal of the drawer's handle. It wasn't fully open, maybe 4 or 5 inches, but enough that I could see inside. Empty. Whatever had been there was gone. I tried to stay calm, but it felt like my thoughts were unraveling. Who took the body? I muttered aloud. Or did it? I stopped myself. The alternative was too absurd, too unsettling to give words to. Bodies don't just walk away. Heart pounding, I turned on my heel and made for the door. My first instinct was to check the security monitors again, to see if there was any trace of movement in the corridors. As I hurried back toward the elevator, a flicker of movement caught my eye down the hall. A figure moving slowly across the intersecting corridor. I paused, peering through the dim light. It was a man. Tall, wearing dark clothing that didn't resemble any nurse's scrubs or doctor's coat I'd seen. His pace was deliberate, almost casual, as if he belonged there. But there was no reason for anyone else to be in this wing, especially not dressed like that. My mouth felt dry. I wanted to call out, but something inside me screamed that silence was safer. Within seconds, the man disappeared around a corner, leaving me with a jolt of confusion and an unmistakable sense that something was very, very wrong. I stepped into the elevator and pressed the button to return to the upper floor. The ride felt agonizingly slow, a creeping dread building in me with each passing moment. By the time I stepped out into the security room, my thoughts spiraled back to that empty drawer and the missing body. If that was indeed a person roaming the corridors, why hadn't the cameras picked him up? And more importantly, where had they taken the body from locker 12? Every fiber of my being told me it was time to get outside assistance. My hands trembled slightly as I reached for the phone on the nearby desk. The overhead lights flickered, casting shifting shadows against the sterile walls. For a moment, I thought about how ridiculous it all felt, calling for help because a single drawer in the morgue was open and a figure might be wandering the corridors. Still, the missing body and that fleeting glimpse of a stranger demanded some kind of response. I dialed the number for the front security station. It rang twice before the guard. A man named Hendricks answered in a bored tone. "Lauren," he said, clearing his throat, "you're calling late. Everything okay down there?" I swallowed hard, trying to keep my voice steady. "Hendricks, did you see anyone enter the building in the last hour or so? Someone not wearing a uniform, maybe wearing dark clothes?" He paused, the silence making me feel more anxious. "No, I've been here all night. No one's come in except that doctor from earlier who left a while back. Why?" My gaze flicked to the screen, showing the empty corridor outside the security office. I might have spotted someone downstairs, and one of the lockers in the morgue is open. The body's missing. I know that sounds, but I'm not imagining it. He let out a breath. "Calm down. I'm sure there's an explanation." Maybe a pathologist took the body for an unscheduled test. Look, I'll come check it out. Just stay where you are. I'll wait, I said, exhaling as quietly as I could. We said our goodbyes, and I placed the phone back in its cradle. The moment the dial tone ended, the atmosphere in the room felt heavier, as if some unseen presence was pressing closer. My thoughts raced. The missing body, the figure in the corridor, the absent sign-in records, nothing made sense. Perhaps the stress was twisting my perception, but I had already seen enough oddities to dismiss that idea. Then, movement at the corner of my vision. I turned toward the glass door leading to the hallway, my breath catching. Through the frosted panel, I could make out the shape of a person standing just on the other side. Tall, motionless, and definitely not a hospital employee, given the lack of any recognizable uniform. My pulse throbbed as I took a step backward. The silhouette shifted, as if leaning closer to the glass. My immediate instinct was to keep distance, so I moved to the rear of the room, where a second door led into another hallway. I yanked it open, heart pounding, and slipped into the corridor. My sneakers squeaked on the polished floor, and I cursed the noise that might give away my position. A quick glance behind me revealed the silhouette had rounded the corner of the glass door and was now in the same room I had just vacated. The figure seemed to pause, head turning from side to side as if searching for something or someone. For a split second, I was tempted to shout, to demand answers, but a stronger instinct told me that confrontation might be the worst possible option. I broke into a half-run, half-limp scurrying down the corridor. My shoes squealed again, and I gritted my teeth at the sound. Rounding a corner, I spotted the staircase that led to the upper floors, the same route I had come from earlier. If I reached the main lobby, maybe I could find Hendrix or another staff member who could help. But my frantic pace and slick floors were a bad combination. As I barreled toward the stairs, my foot slipped on a wet patch, or perhaps an area recently mopped. The impact shot pain through my right ankle, causing me to cry out involuntarily. I collapsed against the railing, gasping as a sharp ache coursed through my leg. Struggling to regain my balance, I glanced up the staircase. My mind screamed at me to keep moving despite the pain. I pressed my weight on the injured foot, biting my lip to stifle another groan. Behind me, heavy steps resonated, each one methodical and chilling. A voice in my head warned that if I stayed still, I might not get another chance to flee. Forcing myself upright, I limped down the corridor, each step jarring my hurt ankle. The hallway lights offered no comfort. Instead, they illuminated just enough space to remind me how alone I was. A wave of nausea rose from the combination of pain and panic, but I forced it down. I dared a glance over my shoulder. There he was, emerging at the top of the stairs I had just descended. Tall and silent, face obscured by the half-light, his posture filled with an ominous purpose. The raw fear that erupted within me momentarily drowned out the ache in my ankle. I had to keep going. Even if every step felt like a blade digging into my joint, there was no time to hesitate. I pressed on, my breath ragged, mind racing with every possible escape route. Turning a corner, I leaned against the wall for the briefest second, checking whether he was still following. Sure enough, the footsteps grew louder, echoing off the walls like a steady drumbeat. With desperation fueling me, I pushed away from the wall, forcing one foot in front of the other. The corridor stretched ahead, lined with closed doors that likely led to storage rooms or offices, none of which could truly protect me if he caught up. Far ahead, a small exit sign flickered. If I reached it, maybe I could get outside, maybe find Hendrix, maybe get to safety. The shadow behind me advanced, unhurried yet relentless, each step reminding me that I wasn't alone in this building after all. Pain flared in my ankle with every step, but the pressure behind me, the relentless echo of footsteps, urged me onward. Panic blurred my vision. I darted along the corridor, my surroundings reduced to the flickering overhead lights and the occasional locked door. Every twist of the hallway felt endless, as though I were trapped in some distorted maze. Then, on my left, I noticed a door slightly ajar. The room beyond was dark, but the small sign affixed to the outside read, "Supplies." With my breathing ragged, I slipped through the gap, careful not to let the hinges creak too loudly. My pulse throbbed in my temple as I turned and gently eased the door shut behind me. The space smelled of disinfectant and rubber gloves, an unremarkable collection of cleaning supplies stacked in shelves that reached the ceiling. My eye swept the room for a hiding spot. In the back stood a large metal cabinet, tall enough to accommodate someone crouching inside if they made themselves small. It was old and dented, but at that moment, it seemed like my only chance. I limped toward it, gritting my teeth each time my injured foot brushed the floor. Opening the cabinet, I saw an assortment of boxes and rags. I hurriedly rearranged them, trying to make enough room for my body. My hand shook as I crammed myself into the cramped space, pulling the door shut so that only a sliver of light peeked through the uneven seam. For a breathless moment, I wondered if I should try to lock it from the inside. But there was no latch, just a rusted handle on the outside. If the man searching for me discovered it was closed, he might break it open. If I left it slightly unlatched, maybe he wouldn't notice. I swallowed hard, deciding to leave it as it was. Boxes jabbing at my sides, the metallic surface cold against my back. I tried to calm myself, to keep my thoughts rational. Perhaps this was all a misunderstanding from some staff member from a different department, or even a trick my mind was playing on me. But deep down, I knew that the person I'd seen had something uncanny about him. Something that cast aside the idea of a harmless mix-up. The hallway outside remained silent for several seconds, and I dared to hope that he had gone the other way. My heart lurched when the doorknob rattled. A gust of cool air swept into the room as the door opened wide. I could sense him stepping inside, his presence shifting the atmosphere. Through the slight gaps in the cabinet door, I caught glimpses of movement. A figure passing in front of the overhead light, a shadow gliding across the tiles. It was impossible to see any clear features, just the dark shape of a person, distinctly not wearing any uniform or badge. No nurse's scrubs, no doctor's coat. He paused near the shelves of cleaning supplies, as though searching for something. I pressed my hand over my mouth, terrified that the sound of my breathing might betray me. A quiet rattle indicated he was shifting items on a shelf. My mind raced. If he opened this cabinet, I had nowhere to go. A soft, stifled whimper escaped my lips. I clamped my hand tighter against my face, tears forming at the corners of my eyes. Please, God, don't let him find me. The prayer repeated over and over in my head, a desperate plea in the midst of this nightmare. Seconds stretched agonizingly. The figure drifted closer to my hiding spot. Footsteps barely audible on the tiles. My entire body tensed as I glimpsed a small portion of his arm, pale, lifeless in color, as though it belonged more to a corpse than a living person. He stood almost within arm's reach of the cabinet. I braced for the metallic clang of the door being wrenched open. Instead, there was a small noise like a frustrated exhale. Then his silhouette moved away. My relief was short-lived. The stranger paced near the door, pausing again to survey the room. I bit my lower lip so hard I tasted the faint copper of blood. My ankle throbbed, reminding me with every pulse that I couldn't run, not quickly, not now. He lingered a moment longer, then exited as quietly as he had entered, the door falling shut behind him with a muted click. I forced myself to remain still, counting the seconds in my head to ensure he wasn't waiting on the other side. Each count felt like an eternity. After what felt like a minute or more, the hallway outside seemed to remain calm. I allowed a tiny trembling exhale to escape. I had nearly avoided an encounter, but something told me this was far from over. I didn't dare move yet. My entire body shook with adrenaline, and my mind reeled with questions. Who was he? Why was he dressed like that? And, most disturbingly, why had he come to this particular room? Squeezing my eyes shut, I tried to steady my nerves. I knew I couldn't stay hidden forever. At some point, I'd have to leave this cabinet, find help, maybe try to reach the guard named Hendrix again. But for now, all I could do was cling to the hope that the man had truly gone, if he was even a man at all. In that cramped cabinet, tears slid down my cheeks, my silent plea to God repeated in my head, as I realized that whatever walked these halls wasn't done looking for me.
There are moments in life that linger like a persistent shadow, forever altering our understanding of reality. Lauren's final shift at that hospital was one such moment, an experience that left her questioning the very nature of the world she thought she knew. When dawn broke, a member of the cleaning staff discovered her hidden inside a cramped supply cabinet. Lauren had collapsed there, drained by the night's events, torn between disbelief and terror. The paramedics arrived, surprised to find no sign of injury besides a minor sprain. Yet the look in her eyes told a different story. One of raw fear she could not put into words. The authorities arrived soon after, curious and skeptical in equal measure. They questioned her about the missing drawer, the mysterious figure she claimed to have seen. Although she spoke of a man without a uniform, footsteps echoing behind her, and that sense of being pursued through the deserted corridors, the security footage painted a far simpler yet far more unsettling picture. In the video, Lauren was alone, running from one hallway to another, stumbling, falling. There was no shape or figure chasing her, no unknown presence captured by the lenses. Instead, it appeared as though she were fleeing from emptiness, her own panic guiding her from corridor to corridor. It showed her talking at times, as if addressing someone unseen, then cowering behind a locked door. The police replayed the footage multiple times, shaking their heads. "You're sure you saw somebody?" Exchanging worried glances. She said nothing for a long time, her gaze fixed on the silent monitor. She knew what she had felt. The cold dread in the morgue, the sense that one of the drawers had been opened and left vacant. But the video contradicted everything, leaving her with more doubt than reassurance. Lauren was granted a leave of absence. Management decided she needed rest, attributing her experience to stress, a likely result of juggling long hours and academic pressure. Her co-workers teased her gently in the days that followed, insisting she had let her imagination run wild. Some joked about hearing ghosts in the morgue, and how the mind can play cruel tricks on a person running on too little sleep. Yet Lauren's conviction never wavered. She recalled the clang of metal, the shuffle of footsteps that made no sense, the fleeting sight of a man who didn't belong in those halls. Even so, She felt powerless to refute the images on the security footage. Images that showed nothing but an empty corridor and her own frantic escape. As rumors circulated through the hospital staff, many decided the entire incident was an unfortunate misunderstanding. But a question remained, whispered in hushed tones among those who still believed in the inexplicable. If Lauren truly imagined it all, then how do we explain the final detail she discovered? After the incident, a thorough inventory of the morgue was conducted. The official report stated everybody was in place, including the one assigned to locker 12. No record showed that particular drawer ever being empty. No pathologist claimed to have removed the body, and there was no evidence of it going anywhere at all. So what truly happened that night? Had Lauren stumbled upon something beyond human reasoning, or was her exhaustion enough to conjure an elaborate hallucination? Was there a stranger roaming the corridors, or did her anxiety manifest a phantom that only she could sense? In the end, answers remained elusive. Sometimes, the things we cannot see or prove are the ones that haunt us most. As for Lauren, she never found closure. Long after her leave ended, she refused to set foot in the morgue again, and every so often on nights when dreams felt too real, she still heard it. That echo of footsteps following her along silent corridors, and the soft rasp of breath on the other side of the door. No matter what the cameras showed, Lauren's own memories stood firm as her truth, and the body from locker 12, officially, had never left its place. So, dear listener, we leave you with the greatest question of all. Was Lauren's mind playing a cruel trick? Or did something truly walk those empty hospital hallways? Let your own imagination decide. Perhaps you'll consider it a fabricated tale of stress and fear, or perhaps you'll wonder if late at night, there really is more out there than our eyes can see. If you crave more tales that blur the line between fact and folklore, I invite you to explore Wendigo's Minnesota, a chilling account of disappearances in a frozen wilderness, where an ancient legend may hold the key to the horror. Was it just local superstition, or did something beyond explanation stalk those woods? Click on the video you see on your screen now and join me on another journey into the unknown. I'll see you there. But be warned, some legends never die, and the truth might be more frightening than you can imagine.